Hi there, this is Dani, and the channel is You and Me Living Free. Today we are in Alabama Hills. This place is glorious. I was driving in at the very end of my last video. I had been in Death Valley, had issues with a flat tire. I was really looking for some peace and some solace, and I found it here in the Alabama Hills. This is Mount Whitney that we're looking at. This is what you see when you are driving into the Alabama Hills BLM area. And there is a lot of area back here to camp for free and to explore, and it's awesome. And then in this next video, this is going to be driving in specifically to the Alabama Hills part, and you can see the difference in the rock formations. And if you look closely, look at all those individual little rounded rock formations coming together. And this place was really something else. And not only was this really special and cool, but I think part of the beauty of this place is really the stark contrast between the big range with Mount Whitney and those super tall, still snow-covered caps, though that majestic range, and then this cool stuff, almost like kind of foothills, but also still mountains and, well, I guess hills, right? Alabama Hills right beside it. But that's one of the things that made this place just very, very unique. And I never even knew about this place, but until some people online told me about it. So then it had to be on my list, especially since I was going right by here. This is one of those trips that I have taken, well, most of the trips that I take, I pretty much kind of plan out where I'm sort of going. And sometimes I will scoot around the order because of weather or because of fire or something, but usually I know where I'm going and I pretty much go to all those places. This trip I have been completely kind of up in the air and doing different things and really changing on a dime. What I'm showing you here is the Overlander place for where I stayed in Alabama Hills my very first night there. The first night I just drove in. That listing that you just saw was for a place right off the road, and it had a great big opening. It was a Friday night I was coming in. I didn't want to have to worry about things being overcrowded. I didn't want to have to worry about not getting a spot somewhere. And I had enough stress that I was dealing with. If you've watched that last video, then you know. So I was super happy to have that place, and that's where I stayed the first night. The next two nights I stayed at Tuttle Creek Campground, and here's a few pictures from there. This place is magnificent. This is also BLM land, but they do charge a small fee for camping. It was $5 a night, and they had toilets and garbage cans and dump site, but that was it. No other amenities or services, which was fine because I found like I was in need of to be around people. I wanted to be close to town, and I also kind of wanted to be around people. I travel solo. I'm on my own a lot. Look at this sunrise shot. The sunrise wasn't that great, but when you look over at the mountains and the clouds that are having the first light of the sun of the day shine on them, look how they just start to glow and just completely come alive. That's one of the things I loved about this campground was these views in the morning. Here you can see my particular campsite and how much space I had. The nice, just amazing. I don't even need to say it. But there you see, like that sunrise back there didn't look as magnificent, but when you pan around to the mountains and see what it's illuminating, you're like, oh my goodness. This is freaking awesome. So for this trip, more than any other, here, instead of just talking about the pictures, I'm going to let these beautiful pictures run, and I'm going to tell you the story of my trip, okay? This trip, I was originally going to kind of stay in the northern Arizona, southern Utah part of the country. I was going to do some more exploring, go back to the Grand Canyon, to the South Rim this time. I had already been there this spring, but I wanted to go back. But I got to that point in the trip where I didn't want to do what I thought I'd want to do. So I was doing some reevaluating. This whole trip has been a series of, I was planning on something, it didn't quite work out, or it didn't feel right then after after when I got to the point. So then I pivoted, and I won't take you through all of those things. But then I thought, well, I'll go into California. I do love California. It is very expensive, but I do love it. And I thought I'd go to the redwoods, and then I decided to go to see the sequoias, and then the road was closed due to snow. And I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, well, I'm close enough to the ocean. Maybe I'll go there, right? So this is just a whole series of things, and this is kind of getting me there. But Alabama Hills was this place where I went, where I was feeling a little depleted after what happened at Death Valley. I wanted some comfort, and I wanted to feel secure. I wanted to give that to myself, right? And so I did. And here's the best thing about Alabama Hills. For me, the best thing about Alabama Hills is not only this gorgeous scenery and being able to just kind of be among the rocks and explore there. I have a hiking video that I'll probably show next that highlights more of that, more of the actual Alabama Hills rock formation stuff. But also, I made 2 new friends at the campground. You know how when I pulled into this campground, I kind of got myself set up. And if you know me, like for the minivan, all that means is I put up my mosquito netting and I pulled out my camp chair and my little table and set it out. That's all I did. And I was only sitting there for a few minutes. And the guy who was in the next camping spot up came by and started talking, commented on the Kansas license plates. We started talking. He's like, oh, I'll have a campfire later if you want to come. I've got another friend here down there. He's coming up. It should be fun. I'm like, okay, great. I would love that. So I went to the campfire and I made 2 new friends. For the next 2 nights, I stood and sat around the campfire with Michael and Richard. They weren't wild about getting their faces plastered on my YouTube channel. So you have to take my word for it. But the next 2 nights I spent just standing around the campfire, shooting the shit basically with those guys. And I also hadn't had a fire for a very long time because, I've been out west and there's a lot of fire bans. And I enjoyed it so thoroughly. It was just like, it happens again and again and again. Like, this being on the road is so wonderful and amazing. It also can be depleting, not always restful and rejuvenating, but you take those times for adventure and then you take those times for quiet and for rejuvenation and for self-care. And then you take those times for adventure and then you settle back in. It's like this always undulating wave, and it is a wonderful thing, but I'm really just learning how to honor what it is I need and then give myself that again and again. So here's a picture of our campfire. I think that's Michael standing there next to the fire. That was his, I don't know what you call it, that little fire pit thing. It was amazing though. It kept things really hot and there wasn't much smoke. Anyway, we also had some libations and I wanted to take pictures so I could remember what kind of beer this was. And as for the whiskey, I will never be having that again. There's a whole nother story there, but that's a story for another day. So what I want to say is that Mount Whitney was there. I could have driven to the top of Mount Whitney, but I didn't. And the truth is, I was not feeling like this was a time for adventure for me. This was a time for healing and sticking close to home and making new friends and doing those different kinds of things. I still got this gorgeous view the whole time, but the key is, I really think, is not always doing the adventurous thing or not always pushing, but just listening to intuition, letting that be your guide, and then you can really never go wrong. And here you are. This is the end of another video, and you have made it, and you deserve a medal, and I'm sending you tons of love. I hope you enjoyed this glimpse of Alabama Hills. I've got a hike I'll show you next, and I will catch you next time.